Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, or perhaps even good morning. Um, I've been looking to start somewhat of a reading channel for a little bit of a while, but I'm actually a college student, so in my last semester, it's been a little bit of a busy time. But I just got on spring break, so hopefully we'll see where this goes. I do hope to have a little bit of fun with this, and yeah. So this is the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. Um, I first heard about this dictionary after listening to a song by the Rex. The song is called Sonder, if you haven't heard of it. And I was just curious what Sonder meant. So naturally, I did some searching and I found that it was an entry from this wonderful little book. So I'm just going to take a little read through it today, go through a couple chapters maybe. I'll talk about some stuff, talk about life, I guess, too. And yeah. So, little interesting factoid, I guess. Uh, Although this is pretty new, I got it pretty new. There's a little bit of water damage on this book. Yeah. So if you're curious about that, I actually went on a date a couple of weeks ago, and I was supposed to meet this girl at a library. And one of the things that we were going to do is bring some of the books that we've been starting to read, or we're planning to read. So that day was a lot of rain, so this book got soaked and ruined. We ended up not reading anyways, but we ended up just having a very expensive dinner, which I foolishly maybe decided to take up on paying for all of it. Not that she didn't offer, of course, she did offer to split, but um, I guess I was a little conforming to societal expectations there. So, yes, this book has a little bit of water damage. It's a little unfortunate. Fortunately, I'm a bit broke, so I wasn't gonna buy a new one for the purposes of today. But hopefully, I did take a good look through it earlier. I don't think any words were smudged, so for now it's just cosmetic damage. Oh, and a couple other things I've got here too. I've got my little page holder, and I've got a bookmark that a friend gifted to me last year for my last birthday. Someday, you will be old enough to start reading fairy tales again. I think that time is now, but not, not to digress, but we will get back to the book. And yeah, thank you for joining me today. I'm also a big fan of ASMR, but I'm not sure if that's what we're going to do for this channel as well, but we shall see. So, New York Times bestseller, The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows by John Koenig. So, we have our little table of contents here. Right there. Might be a little hard to see. I'm not sure if I'm using this right. I can adjust the brightness too. I think we can make that a little brighter. There we go. So, about this book. I read the dictionary. I thought it was a poem about everything. Stephen Wright. Well, we'll see if that's right, I guess. About this book. So, the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows is a compendium of new words for emotions. Its mission is to shine a light on the not fun, on the fundamental strangeness of being a human being. All the aches, demons, vibes, joys, and urges that are humming in the background of everyday life. Right? Canopsia, the atmosphere of a place that is usually bustling with people but is now abandoned and quiet. Desvu, the awareness that this moment will become a memory. Notice Tollens, the feeling that the plot of your life doesn't make sense to you anymore. Annulment, the bittersweetness of having arrived here in the future, seeing how things turn out but unable to tell your past self. Onism, the frustration of being stuck in just one body that inhabits only one place at a time. So, I guess what we'll do is we'll read through it like a page at a time. Maybe I might give some little anecdotes from my own life, whether I felt these things. Yeah, I think that's how we'll do this. So, Canopsia, the atmosphere of a place that is usually bustling with people but is now abandoned and quiet. So I think I've experienced this with quite a few places. I've gone to the city sometimes. There's quite a few places where it's you can just tell like there's the overgrowth of vegetation and just the general urban decay that tells you that that place at one point in time was filled with people and liveliness, but it's now abandoned and quiet, which is a little bit sometimes sad, a little solemn, but also it's nice to see the or imagine what changes might have transpired to bring such a place to like another state. So that's cool. I definitely say I've experienced Canopsia before. Desvu, the awareness that this moment will become a memory. Now I'm not quite sure about Desvu, as that's a bit of a different feeling I guess I've had. This moment will become a memory. No. Yeah, I can say that occasionally something has happened in my life where I'm just like, yeah, that's going, that's, what do they say for Inside Out? That's going to be a core memory. Yeah. So I've had some moments of deja vu. Yeah. I was going to share something, but I was not sure if it would be too personal. Perhaps we'll get to it over time. But yeah, sometimes you just know something happens and you'll remember it for the rest of your life, I'd say. Notice Tollens, the feeling that the plot of your life doesn't make sense to you anymore. Hmm. Say a lot of people in my generation. I'd say I'm Gen Z, if no one's guessed it yet. But um, I'd say a lot of us a little bit aimless sometimes. Um, there is the feeling that sometimes things don't make sense. Sometimes you get this feeling of notice Tollens. Um, whether I don't know if perhaps there's a word in this dictionary for regaining that sense of direction. I don't know. Perhaps we'll come across it, but I've definitely had times in my life. I would say even right now, I sort of feel like a lot of things don't make sense to me. This world doesn't make sense. There's a lot that's going on. There's a lot that's happening. We're simultaneously the most connected generation, but also the loneliest generation for Gen Z. Um, yeah, there's a lot that doesn't make sense. A lot of misinformation that's being spread. A lot of things going on that we wish we could make sense of. Yeah, that's real. Annulment. So, the bittersweetness of having arrived here in the future, seeing how things turn out, but unable to tell your past self. So, yeah, I guess like in terms of reflecting on things and perhaps regretting a lot of things in my life, I think most people also wish they could do things a little differently. I'd say I've definitely had feelings of annulment. Um, whether it's like, darn, if only I was 2 minutes earlier, or even perhaps 2 minutes later. or if only I met this person sooner or met them a lot later. Um, oh yeah, yeah. Things didn't end well with this girl. Yeah. I mostly think the timing was bad. We were very compatible otherwise. We enjoyed a lot of the same things, but um, I guess I'm really just. This is also a little bit of me pouring out myself. I guess this is how this channel will also go. But we were quite compatible, but I think the timing was just bad. Perhaps if we met a little bit later, things would have turned out better. Um, but yeah, I definitely experienced the feeling of annulment. Uh, Onism, the frustration of being stuck in just one body that inhabits only one place at a time. I guess I've experienced a bit of onism as well. Um, Sometimes I wish you could be in multiple places, multiple times, whether it's to hang out with different groups of friends and do simultaneous things all at once. But we can only be in so many places at once, and the feeling of onism is a very real one, I'd say. And there we have it, the big word itself, Sonder. Sonder. The realization that each random passerby is the main character of their own story, in which you are just an extra in the background. It's a calming thing to learn there's a word for something you felt all your life but didn't know was shared by anyone else. It's even oddly empowering to be reminded that you're not alone, you're not crazy, you're just an ordinary human being trying to make your way through a bizarre set of circumstances. That's how the idea for this book was born, and that jolt of recognition you feel when learning certain words for emotions, especially in languages other than English. I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, but Hij, Haig, Hig, Saudade, Duende, Ubuntu, Schadenfreude. Some of these terms might well be untranslatable, but they still have the power to make the inside of your head feel a little more familiar, at least for a moment or two. It makes you wonder what else might be possible, what other morsels of meaning could have been teased out of the static, if only someone had come along and given them a name. Of course, we don't usually question why a language has words for some things and not others. We don't really imagine we have much choice in the matter, because the words we use to build our lives were mostly handed to us in the crib or picked up on the playground. They function as a kind of psychological programming that helps shape our relationships, our memory, even our perception of reality. As Wittgenstein wrote, the limits of my language are the limits of my world. But therein lies a problem. Language is so fundamental to our perception, we're unable to perceive the flaws built into language itself. It would be difficult to tell, for example, if our vocabulary had fallen badly out of date and no longer described the world in which we live. We would feel only a strange hollowness in our conversations, never really sure if we're being understood. The dictionary evolves over time, of course. New words are coined as needed, emerging one by one from the test lab of our conversations. But that process carries a certain bias, only giving names to concepts that are simple, tangible, communal, and easy to talk about. Emotions are none of these. As a result, there's a huge blind spot in the language of emotion, vast holes in the lexicon that we don't even know we're missing. We have thousands of words for different types of finches and schooners and historical undergarments, but only a rudimentary vocabulary to capture the delectable subtleties of the human experience. Words will never do us justice, but we have to try anyway. Luckily, the palette of language is infinitely expandable. If we wanted to, we would build a new linguistic framework to fill in the gaps, this time rooted in our common humanity, our shared vulnerability, and our complexity as individuals. A perspective that simply wasn't there when most of our dictionaries were written. We would catalog even the faintest quirks of the human condition, even things that were only ever felt by one person. Though it is a working hypothesis of this book that none of us is truly alone in how we feel. In language, All things are possible, which means that no emotion is untranslatable. No sorrow is too obscure to define. We just have to do it. This is not a book about sadness, at least not in the modern sense of the word. The word sadness originally meant fullness, from the same Latin root, satis, that also gave us sated and satisfaction. Not so long ago, to be sad meant you were filled to the brim with some intensity of experience. It wasn't just a malfunction in the joy machine. It was a state of awareness, setting the focus to infinity and taking it all in, joy and grief all at once. When we speak of sadness these days, most of the time what we really mean is despair, which is literally defined as the absence of hope. But true sadness is actually the opposite, an exuberant upwelling that reminds you how fleeting and mysterious an open-ended life can be. That's why you'll find traces of the blues all over this book, but you might find yourself feeling strangely joyful at the end of it. And if you are lucky enough to feel sad, well, savor it while it lasts, if only because it means that you care about something in this world enough to let it under your skin. This is a dictionary, a poem about everything. It's divided into 6 chapters with definitions grouped according to theme: the outer world, the inner world, the people you know, the people you don't, the passage of time, and the search for meaning. The definitions are arranged in no particular order, which seems fairly true to life, given the way emotions tend to drift through your mind like the weather. All words in this dictionary are new. Some were rescued from the trash heap and redefined. Others were reinvented. Others were invented from the whole cloth, but most were stitched together from fragments of 100 different languages, both living and dead. These words were not necessarily intended to be used in conversation, but to exist for their own sake, to give some semblance of order to the wilderness inside your head, so you can settle it yourself on your own terms without feeling too lost, safe in the knowledge that we're all lost. Wow. If you ask me, I'd say that's pretty deep, but that's actually pretty cool. I do like little novel and interesting things like this, and I'm kind of curious, does that mean all the words are not arranged in alphabetical order? And from what it seems like, it's not. So it's just a wide selection of words in no particular order, which is exactly how it's described. So I think, at least for this episode, we'll end it right here. Put a bookmark right there. And I'll probably record the next one in a little bit. But for now, I do have to go take a shower. So I'm going to go do that. Because nothing better than reading a good book after a nice shower. So catch you then.